welcome to this short clip from me, Ewan McIntosh, and particularly to those members of the Arab eLearning Academy and those people thinking of attending the GESS Summit in Dubai just in a couple of days' time. Look forward to joining you all there to talk about the role of technology in learning and teaching and the role of technology in years to come. My concentration for the day, more or less, is going to be on how technology interacts with the physical space around us, something that's becoming increasingly important. We arguably spend as much on new school buildings and physical environments as we do in online technologies and on devices. And in fact, most of the devices that we buy are for use within a physical environment. So we're left with a really key question. What's the point of school? Why have students come to school when so much learning can take place online? If you speak to your students, the first thing they'll say, whether it's a school or a university, the first thing they'll say is a reason for coming to the institution is to see my friends. And ultimately it's the social aspect of school, of university, that's so enticing for young people, for any learner in fact. So when we start to think about physical space and technology together, we can maybe start to come up with a more durable, long-lasting way of planning for technology. I don't know what kinds of technology are going to be available in 5 years, which is the length of most technology plans. I barely know what it's going to be in 1 year. But what's funny is looking back at the way that we had set up our thinking around technology spaces nearly 10 years ago. It was one of my colleagues when I worked at Channel 4 television called Matt Locke who came up with 6 spaces of technology, and I've since added another space to it. But really in 10 years that model hasn't changed at all and is just as useful. These spaces were designed to help broadcast television companies understand how to make technologies that were much more interactive and occupy different types of spaces from the traditional television screen. But also, I've been using them with some of our clients, some of our schools, to totally rethink the way they design the physical environment of school and rethink the types of teaching and learning that can be inspired by different physical spaces and technological spaces. First of all, you have a secret space, and secret spaces tend to be those ones on our mobile phones and our cell phones. They tend to be technologies that are designed to facilitate interaction between 1 or 2 people. The second are the idea of group spaces, and group spaces rely on the existing friendship groups that already are there and take advantage of that to share content. So for example, Facebook is an incredibly powerful one of those spaces, just from the sheer likelihood that people you know, those human connections are likely to be there. There are many other examples. An online learning environment for a very enthusiastic face-to-face class might be considered a group space because the offline relationships between people actually propel the use of the online facility. You also have participation spaces, and participation spaces are those often offline environments, so markets, events, conferences like the GESS conference. But online, those things can manifest themselves too. So quite often in my online masters on designing spaces for learning, we have some spaces like Google Docs where there is genuine participation between different students and teachers to come up with a new idea or to come up with a new proposal. From participation spaces, you might consider that we also have performing spaces, and performing spaces would be that one-to-many. In fact, posting this video on YouTube is initially a little bit like a performance. I don't normally speak like this around the dinner table. I'm speaking like this because I imagine there is an audience of at least maybe 10 people who will watch this video, if not more. And so with bearing that in mind, I act differently and I prepare differently, I think differently than I would in a participation space where we have a coffee and talk about ideas around a table that way. So from performing spaces, you then have obviously watching spaces, which is where you're at. Now you're in a watching space as long as you don't leave a comment, as long as you don't share this video clip. And as soon as you do leave a comment, discuss it online with a friend, share it on Twitter, do something like that, you've changed the nature of the clip. And it's gone from being just a watching space where you sit there mouth shut and take in new information into something much more participatory. And so these spaces have a grey line between them that allows, thanks to digital technology, allows us to change the purpose of something that was intended to be for use in one situation, in one space, and start using it for another. And the final space that I'd added was that of data spaces, and the fact that we have so much data that we don't know what to do with it. But technology allows us to harness that data quicker and in a more useful way. Above all, allows students to access their own data to find out where they might go next. That might be something as simple as putting an essay into Wordle to try and find out which words have been overused and repeated, so that you can edit an essay and make it clearer, make it more interesting. Or it could be the kind of large data programs that you see coming out of startups and in assessment and the like. The latter is not my preferred way of using big data. I'd rather that big data is of use to the little person, to the student learning here and now, straight away today. So these 7 spaces of learning, these 7 spaces of technology, these 7 spaces of physicality, they could be a useful way for us to have a common vocabulary to talk about technology, physical space, about our plans for learning and teaching. And that's very much what I'm going to be discussing at the GESS Summit in Dubai at the end of February. I hope that I can meet some of you there, and if not, I can definitely meet some of you online. On Twitter, I'm at Ewan McIntosh. On Facebook, we are NoTosh Learning, and you can find out more about the 7 spaces of learning and a lot of our learning and teaching work on notosh.com.